What beautiful energy and beautiful lights, and to be in your presence and to be in your beloved home here. So thank you all so much for having me. When Sean, who is such a dear friend, extended the invitation, my cup truly did and does and continue to runneth over, and to be with Sean and David in their home, and just to be welcomed in every way, of course, by them and by each one of you. Thank you. It makes my heart sing to be here, and you have something very precious in the way of this gathering and in this community, and it's an honor to be here with you. I thought I'd talk a little bit about Myrtle Fillmore. I don't know how familiar you are with the beginning, you know, what gave beginning to what were the roots of this unity experience that and way of life, you know, for many of us. And so Myrtle often comes to mind and heart for me. And for those of you that may not know Myrtle, it was Myrtle and Charles Fillmore that were the co-founders of Unity that truly did give beginning to this experience that we continue to come together and to be a part of, not only in locations throughout the United States, but around the world. And I give a lot of credit to Charles, but I start with Myrtle, because it started in her heart. It started in her life. It started in her home, in their home. And today we would probably think of Myrtle as a spiritual seeker. But it started with not an aha, not an insight and a spiritual revelation. It moved there. But it first started with a challenge. It started with a health condition. And, you know, as we think about our own journey and our own lives, you know, we don't often start with that spiritual aha, do we? You know, it can be a challenge, it can be a situation, it can be a tough challenge. You know, for Myrtle, and this was back in the late 1800s, and you're probably thinking, Reverend Sean, did you not tell her that we only have like 20 minutes? I won't cover the whole story of Unity. But it continues to be very relevant, even though it's something that took place more than 100 years ago. Because her story has pearls in it that may reflect in some way our own story and our own journey. But again, here it was, the late 1800s. Myrtle was already married to Charles. They already had 2 sons. So here she was, a wife, a mother. She had a very serious health condition, and the doctors were telling her that she only had a few months left to live. You know, it's not what a mother wants to hear. It's not what any one of us in the journey in this relative plane, in this life experience, want to hear. And thankfully it wasn't something that Myrtle decided that she needed to just give into. Again, she was a spiritual seeker. She knew there was something much more about herself, much more about her life than this human condition. Myrtle attended a lecture, and some of you may know the history, but if you're not aware of it, she attended a lecture because, again, she was seeking what was it? What more was it about her life than what the doctors were telling her? And she ended up in a lecture, and it was a Dr. E.B. Weeks that made a statement. Now, I'm sure, my question was going to be, have you ever come together and with a speaker, and you probably have that every week with Reverend Sean, where there's a real takeaway, you know, something really sticks for you. And that happened for Myrtle at this experience. There was a takeaway. And the statement for her was, I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. I am a child of God, and therefore I do not inherit sickness. Now that was not only a takeaway for Myrtle, that was something that she went on to internalize in the very cells of her being, what that meant for her. because that meant to her, I am more than this human condition. I am a child of God. That told her, that informed her, that reminded Myrtle about her divine nature, about her divine essence. And through a life of prayer, both Myrtle and Charles went on to both experience a healing. And from that, they started what we continue to be a part of today. You know, for those of us that choose to live a unity way of life. And, you know, however that looks for you and however that shows up in your day-to-day lives and in your day-to-day activities. But remembering that there is one power, there is one presence in our lives, in the universe, and in the world, God the good, God the good. So it started with Myrtle. It began with a prayer. It began with a belief in God everywhere present within us and everywhere around us. I often go back to some of Myrtle's writings, and although they were written in, again, this was the late 1800s and the early 1900s, I think they continue to be very timeless truths. From Myrtle's writings, I'll share three things with you, and they all start with, and here is the key, God in the midst of you. God in the midst of you. Myrtle corresponded with a lot of individuals that were writing Silent Unity, which they began Unity's prayer ministry in 1890. And they were often at a geographical distance. So Myrtle would write these beautiful, beautiful letters with these beautiful, beautiful truths that she not only believed, but she lived. And again, within the very cells of her being, and she expressed out loud. God in the midst of you is substance. God in the midst of you is love. God in the midst of you is wisdom. To another individual, God in the midst of you is a tower of strength and stability. You are filled with vim, vigor, vitality, and tireless energy. Now, was that the first idea that came to you when you got out of bed this morning? You heard the alarm clock go off. But don't you love that? We are. God is in the midst of us, and whether we use the words vim, vigor, vitality anymore, vitality we probably do, but we're filled with vim, vigor, vitality, and tireless energy. I am filled with vim, vigor, vitality, and tireless energy. Will you affirm that with me?
I am filled with vim, vigor, vitality, and tireless energy.
Yes?
Yes.
And don't you know your cells in your being respond to that?
Yes.
We are filled with that. God in the midst of you. God in the midst of us. To another individual, she wrote, and this is the last one I'll share with you from her writings, God in the midst of you is mighty to quicken, to cleanse, to heal, to restore, to wholeness, to prosper. God in the midst of you. God in the midst of us. There's a sweet little book. My husband and I have children. We have grandchildren in our lives, and so little ones have always been my teachers, and because they remember who they are. You know, and often as adults, we can be a little conditioned, can't we, along the way? And they still remember. So to hear and to listen, to really listen, there can be such precious, precious things. There can also be those reminders of maybe how we have forgotten, and it can be reflected in something that they've said. The little book that I have, Children's Letters to God, one of the little girls writes, and she's very proud because she's just gotten new shoes, and she loves her beautiful new shoes. And she said, God, if you look real close when I'm in church on Sunday, I'll show you my new shoes. Can it not be like that for us at times? You know, we come here on Sunday morning and we are immersed in this energy and in this presence, and we know that we are in the midst. We know that we are one with God. We know that, we get that, we feel that. And to step away, you know, to step out on the street and to get in our cars and the train and go back to our activities of the week, there's the opportunity that to continue to remember that, to continue to feel that, to know that we are one with God, with one another, and with all life, to know that God is in our very midst. Whether that's in a relationship that may feel a little challenging, whether that's back in the workplace with a project that feels a little tasking, whether that's in the doctor's office and maybe we're hearing something that we know is not the truth about us. But it's that opportunity to continue to be reminded that God in the midst of me, God in the midst of me, my source, my stability, my strength, my wholeness, my vim, vigor, vitality, tireless energy, God in the midst of me. So we know, don't we, that as we talk about prayer, that in remembering that we are one, prayer then does not become that of praying to a God at a far distant place. Prayer becomes that of remembering and the opportunity, reminded of God in our midst, God as our source. And so it does not need to be, there are as many different ways to pray as there are people. And this is no judgment whatsoever. Because anytime it's a desire of our heart, that's prayer. But what we have found to be effective in unity, beginning with Myrtle and her experience back in the late 1800s, is affirmative prayer, praying, remembering that we are one with God, with one another, with all life. How effective that is. So we don't have to plead, we don't have to beg. There may be times that we're moved to that from the standpoint of our humanness, and that's okay. We don't want to be harsh with ourselves or judge ourselves. But we do have that opportunity to move back to, I remember. Prayer is that opportunity for me to remember my divine essence, my source, that which is ever present within me and as me, the very Spirit of God in expression. I think it's why it continues to be so helpful to, in unity, we talk about our 5 basic principles. And of course there are more than 5. You know, there are a lot of spiritual principles that we apply in our life. But the 5 basic ones really sum up our worldview, perhaps, if this is your own worldview. You know, as we talk about the nature of God, being love, being everywhere present, being our source, being God, the good, the will is good, the love is unconditional, the peace is ever present and lasting. God is our source. And then for us, our nature, there is our humanness, and how precious that is in this life experience. But how even greater that there is our divine essence. And sometimes our humanness can surface and perhaps kind of cloud the mind, and there goes our thoughts. And then we have an opportunity to shift our thoughts and to remember that wholeness is ours, peace is ours, divine love and abundance is ours. Myrtle talked about prayer and its ability to quicken, awaken, and stir that spirit of energy within us. Do you feel that? I certainly felt it today in coming together with all of you, with the beautiful music and with the beautiful love and light in expression. You feel that stirring within you. Charles, and again, this is our co-founders in Unity that I'm referring to, Charles Fillmore talked about prayer as accelerated mind action. Accelerated mind action. He said this about thinking, and I love this. So as you think about your thoughts and you think about your thinking ability, I mean, isn't it amazing what we have in this way of being able to think and our thoughts? Charles says the thinking faculty or ability in you makes you a free agent because it is your creative center. The thinking faculty ability in you makes you a free agent because it is your creative center. In and through this one power, you establish your consciousness. You build your world. Your creative center, your thinking ability. You establish your consciousness. You build your world. There's the power. It's within each and every one of us. And again, it's in prayer that we have the opportunity to shift our thoughts, to shift our focus, and to remember who we are. As children of God, as spiritual beings, whatever language of your heart that you give to that. Knowing that we are one with God, one with Spirit, one with divine love, whatever is your term of endearment with the higher power. Prayer is that opportunity for us to remember and to be centered. It's our choice. And I love it that we are created with free will, with choice, with the option to choose, with the option that we're given the power of this creative center and ability, and that we have choices. So it's our choice. Did we choose to live in conscious awareness, don't we? And then we have those opportunities, maybe those challenges that can show up day after day that call us to remember, to remind that, to center ourselves and to be even more firmly planted in our truth, that which we know about ourselves. We can choose to live our life with an open mind, a receptive heart, our spiritual eyes open, seeing and receiving and being receptive to those blessings that are expected and unexpected. Receptive to new ideas and to new experiences. And really to move boldly and with faith throughout our journey. And then we know that we evolve as we see and perceive life in new ways. We become an expansive vessel to journey through this life, aware of our sacredness. Prayer. I'll share just a few more words of Myrtle. I have such a passion for music, and my goodness, not only do you all have a passion, you have such a gift and a talent and expression of that. And perhaps these words of Myrtle would have meaning for you too. She said, we should not draw the strings of this instrument of spirit so tight that the music of the soul cannot find expression. Prayer is our opportunity to be open, to live our life open and receptive and ready and eager with joyous anticipation. We should not draw the strings of this instrument of spirit so tight that the music of the soul cannot find expression. And I'll end with a few words by the Dalai Lama. Because again, you are each one such a beloved, beautiful light. And if you haven't had the opportunity to stand up here and to see that from this view and perspective, maybe you can prod Reverend Sean to let you do that in days and weeks and months ahead. But it is beauty that's right here in every way. The Dalai Lama says, if grains of sand can become a reflection of the divine, just think what can happen to the human being. You truly are the light of the world, my friends. Thank you for all that you do, for all that you express, for all that you be. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here in your presence. And for those of you that will be participating in the retreat, to continue to be a part of your journey in the days forward. It is an honor to know you and to love you. God bless you, and thank you for having me here.